Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center, and it's here on the show that we actually have on the experts, guests that I bring on to share with us insights as it relates to running successful business and most importantly, providing quality accounting services. And today's going to be a wonderful conversation, one I've been looking forward to because it's regarding staffing. Jamie Van Cuyk happens to actually be a hiring consultant who helps women, small business owners become confident leaders who they hire right and do so the first time. After leaving a successful corporate career to follow her entrepreneurship dreams, Jamie quickly learned that many business owners had no or minimal hiring experience. And with that, they were becoming ineffective with their teams. So one of the reasons why they were failing were obviously these poor hires. Therefore, Jamie felt inspired to help these companies overcome this challenge and succeed. Today, drawing from over 15 years of leadership experience, Jamie actually helps her clients master the art of hiring and host the Growing Your Team podcast. On a personal note, Jamie lives in St. Petersburg, Florida with her husband and two daughters, loves to travel, is a home winemaker, and enjoys exercise that takes her feet off the ground, including rock climbing and aerial dance. So first of all, I'm thinking in my mind, we've got Lucille Ball in a grape vat, actually crushing grapes. So we're going to at some point address that, Jamie.
All right, that sounds good.
Very good. All right. Well, welcome to the show. First of all, this whole issue of hiring is something that a lot of people are dealing with. It's a strain in the accounting profession because we are limited in the staffing options that we have as a profession. And so hiring is a topic of discussion. So I'm eager to dive deep into this, but I want to get a little bit of a backstory. Tell me how you really got into becoming the expert as you are as it relates to staffing in general.
Yeah, so it really goes back to my corporate career. I wasn't in HR, which most people assume. I was in operations leadership.
Okay.
I was managing a team that was it was a mix of entry level or at least people entering the company for the first time. So we did have a variety of backgrounds coming in, but my team was amazing. And they were always getting poached and promoted and moving elsewhere in the organization. So I was always in this cycle of hiring. I felt like I never had a full staff because as soon as I was like, yes, my staff is full, oh, someone was getting promoted. Someone was going to a different team. And it was just like, yes, I'm really happy for you, but oh my gosh, now I have to go interview again. And my peer managers, because we were a medium-sized company, so there was a bunch of other managers that were managing similar teams. They're like, I'm having the same problems, but they're like, I don't have time to hire. So can you hire for me? You're doing interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Can you at least like point me to the candidates you think would be good for my team? And with that, that's where I quickly learned that even though our team members on paper were doing the exact same thing, who was going to be successful on my team with the clients that my team members worked with were not going to be successful necessarily on their team because that person had a different management style. That person was managing different accounts. They're working with different sales team and everything. So I started to really be able to focus on the details to say, all right, not only can this person do the job, but where would they fit into the organization if they fit into the organization at all? So with that, I then also got paired with the HR team when we were doing a mass hiring. We went from, which I think a lot of corporate companies do, they're like, we're at a hiring freeze. And then it's like, oh my gosh, we haven't hired and our team is drowning. We're finally realizing that. So we're like, we know we told you for the last year and a half you couldn't hire. Well, guess what? Now we're going to give you permission to hire 18 people. And we're going to set the start date 6 weeks from now. And we want everyone to start at the exact same time. And we're like, how do we hire 18 people and have them all start on one day and have enough time for these interviews? So I worked very closely with the HR team to learn their side while we were going through that process so I could support them and support our management team as we were making those decisions. But still, I left corporate and I was just like, I had no plans on starting this business at first, but I quickly learned the business left my corporate job to start. 6 months in, I realized that was not for me. I was miserable. It was in the tech world. I realized I don't like being on that side of tech. I like using it, but I didn't like being on the back end. So I was like, what do I do? And that's when I started going to our local chamber to be like, all right, maybe I'm going to start my own business. What are the needs out there? I liked consultant. I had been doing a few side leadership consulting projects. And that's when I really heard that hiring was a challenge. And I'd be like, okay, it's not my focus, but let me give you tips. And as I kept talking to people and giving them tips on how to hire and taking my knowledge and helping to interpret it in a way that would fit them in their business, I was just like, I really know what I'm talking about here. And people need this support. So it was like, why am I not offering this support? Why isn't this the building business that I'm building? And so from there, it was like the light bulb went off, and I'm just like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to help small businesses through hiring because I have the knowledge. I have the ability to translate my knowledge to their situation, and they want the support. They want to be able to hire well and not be on this hiring and firing cycle due to their own mistakes.
I'm loving this because your background is something I can relate to. Coincidentally, I was actually a recruiter for a large company where I was doing all the hiring, did all the interviewing, extended the positions. So for a number of years, I was involved in that very specific role. And coincidentally, from there, I went into a headhunter, a recruiter role where I was actually placing individuals on temp assignments and permanent placement opportunities. And it was a phenomenal run of my career early on. This was back in my 20s. And as I was doing that, I was very, very successful, but it was exactly what we're talking about today. It's how do you find those good fits for the company to help them grow? So I'd like to actually figure out a few things. One, I know that you focus primarily on women-owned businesses. Why women? How is being a woman a little different as it relates to hiring?
Yeah. So one of the things that just drew me to focusing on women run businesses is women really fear delegating. There's a lot of this mindset of, I'm not ready yet. As women, we get a lot of pressure on us from society of we should be able to do it all. As women became more and more in the workforce, we weren't giving up everything else at home. It was like, you're going to do that and the homework and everything else and just add more to your plate. So we've a lot of times, whether it's directly or indirectly, just societal norms, it's you should be able to do it all. So as we hear you should be able to do it all, we start to really feel in our businesses when we can't do it all as a sign of I'm not doing well. And so it's kind of flipping that message of you reach a point in your business where you can't do it all because you're succeeding. And this is a sign of success. It's not a sign of failure that you're not doing enough, that you can't do it all. So I like to help people really work through that mindset of you deserve to be able to get stuff off your plate and to delegate it to someone else. It's a sign of success. It's a sign that you're growing a business. It's a sign that you're doing something well. So let's do it. Let's teach you how to let go of that control. It's also just one of those things you find the people that you work best with, the people that overlap with yours. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm a mom of two girls, and I find that I work a lot. The clients that I attract just also tend to be moms a lot of times. They're the people that don't want to be working in their business 60, 70 hours a week. They're like, no, I want to work when the kids are at school. I want to have the freedom and flexibility to then be able to take time off in the summer when my kids are home, be able to take time off between Christmas and New Year's when the kids are out of school, be able to leave the office at 3 because I pick up my kids and maybe I check an occasional email or here or there, but I don't feel tied down to my job in that typical 9 to 5 environment that a lot of people are told this is what business should look like. So it's really working with a lot of women who want to build businesses that fit their life instead of feeling that they need to fit their life into their business.
Interesting. Now, these things that you're describing, I know are very, very genuine, and I know that people do experience them. I've heard them as well, and I'm going to add to the list. Just last week, I was at a conference, and I was speaking with a woman who owns a very successful tax business. And when she was sharing with me some of the challenges she was facing, one of the things she commented is that she has a difficulty with her clients gaining their respect or being seen by them as a peer, someone that is also very successful and so forth. And it was something that she was challenged with. And I know she didn't say this, but I believe she alluded to it, which is this also is internal. So it's not just with clients, but it was obviously managing employees and trying to actually work with people that were both perhaps older than her, but at the same time, a different gender. And so as she's dealing with these challenges, I'm just curious, what advice would you have for her as she may be dealing with this challenge in her mind as it relates to positioning with potential clients? And as we're discussing here today, interviewing and hiring maybe somebody that's of a different gender or more importantly, senior in age.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things is just being actually self-aware of your own strengths. A lot of times we want to focus on our weaknesses or what people tell us, you know, should be or what they think. And it's like just kind of being self-aware of our own strengths, that we are where we're at because of our
Mm-hmm.
strengths. And a lot of times we say, I'm not good enough yet. And a lot of times that's inner self-talk. And it's like, okay, well, you might not be perfect yet. You might not be there yet. Like when you start a business, you are not really, you don't really have the skills yet to really be a CEO, but you need to build it over time. So a lot of times, yeah, you're starting a business and you really are starting from the ground up, but you're building skills and you're promoting yourself within your business. And it's really seeing that success in everything you have. It's standing in your zone of genius. And it's also one of those things where if someone's not going to recognize you for your strength, especially from that client perspective,
Mm-hmm.
if a client isn't going to respect you for the strength and knowledge that you have, then they're not the right client for you.
Mm-hmm.
Work with the clients and attract the clients that see your strength, that welcome your strength, that want to hire you because of your strengths, instead of struggling to go after an audience that isn't ever going to see you that way.
Yeah. One of the things that I bring up as I have this conversation with her and many, many others is the idea of the imposter syndrome. It's that self-doubt that we actually allow to creep in and sabotage ourselves as to the credibility we have, the experience that we have, the expertise that we have, and really recognizing that we are successful and we have, as you were mentioning, a lot of things to be not only grateful for, but very accomplished in, something that we can be proud of. And so it's with that we can hold our head high, hold our shoulders back, and be very confident in the conversations we're having with business owners, or in this case, with employees or potential employees. The way I recall experiencing it personally is I vividly remember in my 20s being that recruiter, doing those interviews, and more often than not, I was interviewing people that were much more experienced, much more senior myself. And whether it be in management or in a recruiting phase, I quickly started to realize age was now no longer relevant. Either I was able to command the situation, be confident in what I was doing. I was the authority or the expert, not to be arrogant, but to just be confident so that I could actually do my job, not because of who they were, but because of who I was. And that's one of the things that I was learning. The turnkey marketing and sales process to getting accounting clients with confidence. The Universal CRM is in fact a tool designed for accounting professionals to help them automate the process to the point of not only finding potentially new clients, but having meetings and getting new engagements to retain them as clients. This process is made up of using specific tools such as CRMs, email marketing, text messaging, sales pipelines, forms, and funnels, as well as reputation management and social proof, getting the testimonials that you need online to substantiate your skills and services. All of these tools and technologies are leveraged to your benefit using the Universal CRM. Go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. As it relates to interviewing and hiring, I'd like to kind of break this into stages and get your input on this. Clearly, there's the pre-interview phase. There's the screening out resumes, trying to determine with whom you're going to meet. I'm curious if you've got any suggestions as it relates to just finding that qualified candidate. Is there a process that you would suggest someone consider as they're looking to screen individuals to meet with?
Yeah. So the very first thing is, when you go to hire, you have to be very clear on who it is that you're trying to hire. So it's more than just knowing what tasks this person has to be able to do. It's really understanding who's going to fit well into your organization. What background does this person need in order to be able to fit the picture of your idea candidate? Is it someone who is entry level? Well, what does entry level mean to you? Is it someone that is mid-career? Okay, what does mid-career mean to you? What are they able to do? Someone who is mid-career might not be the right person for you because maybe you focus on a specific type of client in a specific industry, and people need to be able to really understand that. So someone who is mid-career and never worked in the industry of your focus, maybe that doesn't matter. So because they're not the right person. So it's really knowing who it is that you need. Before you even start reviewing resumes, it's creating a job post that actually speaks to that idea candidate, that it's clear of who is going to be successful in your company in this role, instead of just putting out, I'm hiring a bookkeeper or a junior staff accountant or whatever the position is. You're not hiring just that title. You're hiring someone that's going to fit into your organization. So from the very beginning, you want to write a job posting that makes some people go, yes, they just described me. This is the position for me, which is also going to make other people go, no, this is not the position for me. I need to look elsewhere. I'm not going to apply. So you want people to deselect themselves from the process because you did such a good job describing who your ideal candidate is. So then when people do apply, you want to be very clear on what makes a good resume in terms of who is that ideal candidate. I feel that so many people get swayed when they're looking at resumes by things that are irrelevant to the position. Maybe I was working with a candidate once, and when they said, I want to bring this person for, or I was working with a client once and they said, I want to bring this candidate in for an interview. And I was like, okay, why? Tell me how this person matches your ideal candidate. And they weren't able to say anything. So I was like, okay, well, tell me really why you want to bring this person in for an interview. And they're like, okay, now that you're really questioning me, the only thing that can come to my mind is they have a really pretty resume. They have a really well-written resume. And it's like, well, well-written resume is great, but if it's not showing you what you need to see, who cares? There's always going to be people who are overqualified that apply for your job. Well, overqualified doesn't mean they're going to succeed in your position. So we like to train on, there should be 3 things that you're looking for on that resume. Those 3 things are going to change depending on who your ideal candidate is. And you want to see, do they have these 3 things? Those are your first 3 things to look for on that resume. If they don't have it, then they're a no. So if you were saying this person needs to be experienced in QuickBooks, and this person doesn't say QuickBooks at all on their resume, well, then they're not a good fit. They're not someone to look at, no matter what other experience they list there. We can then get into more details of, okay, you end up with 25 candidates that have those 3 things and you don't have time to interview 25 candidates. Then how do we go deeper to determine who should be priority of those 25? But at first, we want to look for very specific things on our resume that we can easily see on a resume. So there's a lot of things that make up that ideal candidate that we can't tell from a resume, but what can we see on a resume that we can easily qualify and dequalify people for that next step of the process?
I'm liking the emphasis that you're putting on them dequalifying themselves or disinteresting themselves in applying for the position. I think that's hugely important. And it comes from the clarity of the job description. The more specific we can be in what it is we're looking for, what it takes to be successful, the more likely it is you're going to have the right candidate apply. And I'm going to add to it a few things that I've learned over the years. One is, how best can you describe your culture? How can you describe the work environment? For example, is the position that's being applied for one that they need to be team oriented, they interact and work well with other individuals, or is it more autonomous? You're going to be expected to perform on your own and independently. Some people thrive in either of those situations, and they need to know which it is for them. The other is culturally, are there deadlines? Are they good under stress? Are they able to work with certain expectations that are placed upon them? If you can articulate that well in the job description, they can then realize, okay, I don't like that high stress kind of a thing. I'm more task oriented. I just want to go through the day and get things done. The third thing I would add is, in the job description, the more you're able to show, okay, this is a client-facing type of position. You're going to work with our customers. You're going to interact with our consumers. Is this something that they need to actually have good customer skills, communication skills, and so forth? Or is this more of an internal? You're just going to work with people in the office. Nobody externally gets to interact with you. So you just need to work with this smaller group of individuals. These key insights help individuals identify whether or not this is going to be a great position for them. And then they're more excited to apply. And then the thing I would add for the person doing the hiring is, I put a lot of emphasis on the cover letter, just like you were describing. The resume, that's great. You can list the skills, maybe show the experience, but how pretty or beautiful it looks, that's just somebody giving them great input on, hey, you ought to make this font, you ought to make this spacing. Yeah, they made the resume right, and it might have, through some scrubbing process, got through the system to be considered for the interview. But I want you to tell me in your own words, in a cover letter, why this position is of interest to you. Why do you feel you would be a good fit here? Help me recognize within the resume what I should be drawing attention to. What is it that you think, either experience or skill set, is something I need to recognize? And I'm trying to basically then further screen with whom I'll ultimately meet. So any final thoughts on just the screening process before we get to the interview?
Yeah. So I love that you brought up cover letters, because cover letters are something that in most environments I'm not a fan of. And I'll tell you why. But you said something that I think is good. So I think we'll stress on this is, most people just want to say, I want them to provide a cover letter. And I'm just like, okay, well, what do you want them to write? Like a cover letter is just a writing sample that they can go out and have someone highly edit it for them. So like, I want to see their writing style. Well, cover letter is not a good thing for their writing style because like I said, someone can highly edit it for them. They could be using AI to help generate ideas and things like that. And what are they going to write on? So to me, if you're going to require a cover letter, you need to tell them what that cover letter should be about. So as you said, like what about their experience makes them a good fit? Something that's not just regurgitating completely what's on their resume, but something that really maybe goes through that thought process or things like that. So there's a lot of positions we help with that we actually say, no, a cover letter is actually going to be a waste of time. Don't have them write it. We'll have them do a writing sample later in the process, but a cover letter doesn't fit for what you're looking for. But then there are other cases where you say, yeah, a cover letter is going to work. Let's give them the specific thing to write on for that cover letter versus just requiring any cover letter that they might write.
Two things. First, I completely agree with you, and I appreciate you drawing attention to this. The cover letter isn't just add a cover letter to your resume. It is a specific request as it relates to the cover letter. I want you to communicate how what you've got on your resume is relevant to this specific position. And if you can give them just 3 bullet points of what you'd like them to cover in the cover letter, they'll intentionally write a cover letter specifically for this application. But there's a second reason why I personally like the cover letter. In today's world, electronically, I can just envision this person sitting down, going from job posting, job listing, job posting, and they're just submitting resumes. They're just going through the churn of applying for positions. I want to stop that person and put in there a requirement to customly write this letter. It's a unique cover letter to our organization, our company, this position. It's not a cover letter that they're sending also with their resume to everyone else. And so that extra hoop that they have to jump through will further eliminate those individuals that are just going through the process. I want to know who's eager for the position, that's willing to do that one extra thing that I'm asking for me to consider them for the interview. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, okay. So here, let's go to the interview. Let's say I've screened out the resumes, identified a handful of individuals with whom I'd like to meet. What advice do you have for the interviewing process? What am I looking for? Are there some myths as it relates to my interest in passion versus skill?
Yeah. So first off, that's a great question. So passion versus skill. People always say, like, which one should I go after? And a lot of times you'll hear from like large corporate companies is go for the person who has the passion, get them on the bus because you can always figure out the right seat for them later.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't work in small businesses because if you're a solopreneur right now, you're only expanding to one other seat. You could be on that motorcycle and now you're adding that sidecar. You don't have a big bus yet. So you need to make sure you're hiring a person for that seat that you have right now, for those needs that you have right now, which means skill is super important. We don't want to forget passion, but skill has to come first. So you need the person who can do the job and has the passion and can fit into your organization and that you want to work with. So both need to work in tandem, but we really want to focus on skill first, passion second. Because if you focus on passion first, you can then be blinded by the skills that they actually have or not have, where you start thinking this person can do it. And you really have to challenge yourself with the mindset of, but can they really? Because I know that happened to me when I was a brand new manager hiring for the first time. I was so swayed by someone's passion. And I was so thankful that someone sat me down and said, but can they do the job? And having to answer that question made me really think about it. And I was just like, I actually don't know. I don't know if they can do the job because what they shared in the interview didn't actually prove that they could do the job. And it was like, okay, this candidate has all the passion in the world. I love that. I support that. Let me refer them to someone else where it looks like their skills align with what they're hiring for. So you really want to make sure in the interview that you're hiring someone who can do the job. So how do we do that? And the first thing is make sure you have a prepared list of interview questions. Even if you're a person that typically flies by the seat of your pants, the interview time is not the time to do that. Be prepared with a list of questions because you want to ask all candidates the same or very similar questions. So it doesn't mean you have to ask every candidate every question, but you should at least have the same basis that you're going into every interview with. You also want to make sure every question you ask ties back to your ideal candidate. So what is unique about your position? Who's going to be successful? As you went through, Roger, and you were saying, In your position, someone might be very client focused, and another position in another company doing the exact same tasks, they might not be client focused. So how do you determine if someone can succeed in a client focused environment, one where they actually have to interact daily with that client? So you want to make sure your questions all tie back to what is important about this position and who is going to succeed in this position. So that way you can know if a candidate has proved their ability to succeed rather than just told you stuff that sounded great.
So I'm going to ask a two-part question here, and I might have to
Okay.
come back and ask the second part because
Sounds good.
it's pretty big here. So I want to first of all address then, because of this passion versus skill, the issue of over or hiring somebody that's overqualified. And what I mean by that is sometimes in the interviewing process, you find somebody that clearly has the skills that you're looking for. They've got the experience, they're competent, and you're curious, why are they taking this position? It appears like it's a backward step in their career, possibly in a lesser paying position. And there's the concern of hiring somebody overqualified. I'm curious your thoughts on that. But the second part of the question is, there's also this myth of hiring the ideal candidate, the perfect person, the individual that's a mirror of me, for example. And the reality is no one's the perfect candidate. Someone's going to need some additional skills, some training. Somebody's going to need that onboarding process to kind of mold into the culture. There's personality traits, characteristics that we need to be sensitive to. So there's no perfect employee, perhaps. But the beauty of it is there is this balance between passion and skill. I can hire somebody that I can see is committed, loyal, perhaps has good work ethic. Maybe I know them because of resume or references, or maybe their friend, family, and so forth. The skills, if in a position you have great standard operating procedures that are documented, that can be processed and followed, I can work with somebody that's got work ethic. I can work with somebody that appears to be loyal. I don't know if I can work with a person that is, a lot of drama, a lot of frustrations, even though they've got the skills. So there's two questions there. Let's talk first about the overqualified. How do you handle the situation where you're dealing with a client that's like, I found the best candidate, that they're really overqualified. Do you walk them back? Are there any checks that you can use to assess, is this going to be a good fit?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question because it's one of those things you see all the time. Like people are trying to find jobs and they're like, I'm an engineer and I can't even find a part-time job as a receptionist. I was like,
Mhm.
but you have a resume that's written for engineer positions.
Yeah.
Why am I going to hire you for a receptionist when you're not going for that type of opportunity? So there's some of those things where people are obviously overqualified from the beginning. And then there's other things where it comes to, all right, they're applying for a position. Let's say it's an accounting position and they're more a senior accountant and you really need a junior accountant type thing. And you're saying, well, they have all the skills. It's the right career path. They're just much further in their career than what I'm hiring for right now. When you see that and when you uncover that in an interview, it's always a good time to ask the questions. Why are they attracted to this position? It's being honest. I see that you have been doing XYZ. In this position, you're not going to have that same exposure. You're not going to have that same accountability and responsibility. This is what this position is like. And we can ask questions that kind of uncover what they're really looking for in that next role. There are some people that are out there that say, yes, I've gone through my career. I have been at this place, but I need something where I need less responsibility. I realize that wasn't the fit for me. Or maybe they're a new parent and they're like, now that I have to leave the office at 5 because I need to get to daycare to pick up my child, I can't be in a role that requires 60 hours a week, 50 hours a week. I need a position where I can only do 40 hours. This is it. I am willing to let go of that additional responsibility and accountability in order to continue in this field in something that also fits my life. So there are times where people are looking to take that step down. There are times where maybe there are other things going on in their life that make this a good fit. So we can ask questions to uncover, is that a good fit? Through that, we might also find out that no, this is not a good fit. They are really looking for that next thing. And we can sit there and say, but I'm thankful that they applied for my job but we still don't want to hire them because if they're looking for that bigger thing, they're never going to be happy. If they really want that authority and responsibility that comes as you move on in your career and you can't provide that, they're going to realize that something is missing and they're not going to stay with you very long. or they're going to be quickly looking for that raise or that promotion that you might not be able to give. So if it's really not a fit, you're better off saying no to the overqualified candidate, because chances are they're not going to be there long term.
Yeah, yeah. No, my sister-in-law, she actually went through this very experience, and I know numerous others, but in her particular case, she had graduated with her master's in accounting. She double degree majored. She was valedictorian. She was very successful as an accountant. She moved and went to a different state with her husband. And with that relocation, tried to find employment. And she realized every time she submitted her resume showing the valedictorian and all this, she just wasn't getting the positions. And she was applying for more, like you were describing, kind of a more entry level type position. She just wanted something that she could go in and put in the hours and leave. She didn't want the responsibilities because of things in her lifestyle, and she couldn't get the jobs. So she deliberately went on the resume, removed valedictorian, removed the master's, just said she went to school in accounting. She did all these things to apply for positions, got a position working for the city. And they quickly realized they got a catch, because she clearly knew more than even the people that were managing her in the department. And she was able to take on so many more responsibilities. But it was that dumbing down of her resume that allowed her to actually achieve that. So yeah, I can definitely understand this situation. So now I'm going to go to the converse. And let's talk about the individual that may be lacking in a skill here or there, the experience, but they just seem like a great fit. They're highly recommended. Maybe we even know them. What do you say to the individuals that saying, I think I can hire this person, but it's clear that I'm going to need to train them? Just to be transparent, we're a post-secondary school for accounting professionals. This is what I deal with all day long, is taking people that are that diamond in the rough and refining them with the skills that they need to do the job well. So where there's the hiring deficit, we don't have enough people in the profession to give the positions to. We are, as a profession, having to take these rough diamonds and hone them. What are your thoughts to that?
Yes. Okay. So I have so many thoughts around this. So the first thing is going back before you ever met that individual. So when you're really beginning the process and you're determining who your ideal candidate is, we split qualifications and backgrounds and needs and everything into two categories. The one is the
Good.
must have. This is the bare minimum. Someone must have these skills in order to be successful. Now, these are the nice to haves. And every company, that list is going to look different. So I have worked with someone who runs a bookkeeping company who is totally okay with hiring people for certain positions that don't have any bookkeeping experience, but they have all these other transferable skills, and she will teach them bookkeeping from the ground up. I've then worked with other companies that say, I can't teach people the bookkeeping. I can teach them this other stuff, but you have to come in with at least a basic level of bookkeeping. I can make you more advanced. I can hold your hand through that, but I'm not going to teach you from the ground up. So it's knowing what you can do. It's also recognizing that I was actually just having a conversation with a friend last night about this. He's an architect, and they're having a really hard time hiring for their architect roles because everyone that's applying is entry level. And his organization says, we're not set up to teach people and hold their hands from entry level to moving on.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, we would love to be, but that's not where we're at right now. And by them having that awareness, they're not going to hire that person that doesn't have any experience yet, because they can't provide what is needed to make that person successful for their own organization. And so you need to know that. Can you actually provide this person what is needed while still getting a good return on your investment for having that person on your payroll? And if the answer is yes, then go ahead and hire that person. So for that family member that you want to give that opportunity to, can you give them the training and support that's needed? Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no.
Yeah, I'm loving this because I think you nailed it spot on. It's the must-haves and the wishes. The whole idea here is, what are you willing to compromise on and work with? And sometimes it means that the ramp-up period is longer. If I'm going to hire this individual, I originally thought that they could be up and performing within 3 months. Maybe I'm going to need to do something extra with them and get them up to speed in 4 months. And do I have the runway to actually work with them accordingly because of the time demands that it may have? But knowing that as you're assessing this person's skill set, their personality, their background experience, allows you to, like you just said, identify what are the must-haves, what would the like-to-be's, and all of a sudden I can get a clear understanding of what I'm dealing with in front of me and make an intelligent decision with it. So this is excellent feedback. All right, so I'd like to now take it to that next level as it relates to interviews. You're interviewing the individual. Typically, I look at interviews as being a 2-3 interview phase. Do you have any
Yep.
suggestions regarding interviews, the number of interviews, any particular things we should be looking for in an interview?
Yeah. So I say always a minimum of 2 interviews. So the first interview is typically shorter, typically done in some sort of remote virtual manner. So whether it's over the phone or Zoom or any type of video conference, it's a short interview just to make sure they match their resume and they have the basic qualifications in order to be able to do the job. Because you don't want to take too much of your time or too much of the candidate's time if it's not going to be a fit. As we talked about, just because someone has the skills doesn't mean they're right for you. So you might get on that first call and say, okay, yep, they 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 do have what they said on their resume. It's just now that we dug into it a little bit, it's not right for our organization. So quick interview, you're done. The second interview, you're going to go more in depth. That's where you're really going to find out not only can they do what you need them to do, are they the good fit for your culture? So you're going to ask a lot more of those deeper questions. It's going to be a longer interview. For that second interview, a lot of people ask, should it be in person? Should it be through video conference? What should I do? And my advice for that is depends on how you're going to work with this person. If it's a position that's 100% remote and you're never going to meet this team member in person besides maybe one-off meetings, you don't necessarily need to meet with them in person for that final interview. But if it's an in-office position or a hybrid position or anything where you'll be working with this person frequently in person, or your clients will be meeting with this person frequently in person, if that's the type of service that you offer where someone goes into your clients to present information, you want to see how that person shows up in person. So make sure it's an in-person interview.
Love this. This is wonderful. I'm going to add to that a few things. This is just through the experience I've had. My first interview is made up of basically 4 steps. First is I introduce the company. I'd like the applicant to know who we are in my own words, what the company is, what we do, what we sell. The second thing is essentially, who am I? Why are you interviewing with me? Of all the people here, why are you talking to me? Why am I involved in this interviewing process to consider you as an applicant? Third is I want to go over the job description. In my own words, I want to take a moment here and describe what we're trying to fill as a position and the expectations we have for it. And then with that, the fourth thing is I want them to help me understand why they're the best applicant. And that's where we'll dive into their personality or their background and experience. So in that process, I've really gotten to know them as a candidate. But here's the thing that I'd like to point out. As you mentioned, there's a 2-step process. I do have at least 2 interviews, if not a third. And the second interview is where I'm open to selling them on the position. First interview, I want to know why you're the right person. The second interview, if you've gotten that phase or to that stage, I'm now wanting to sell you on the business. Why do you want to work here? Our benefits package, the perks of the position. I don't do that in the first interview. I don't waste my time trying to sell them on why this is the place they want to find employment. I want to find out about them first. I reserve all that to the second or third interview. And that way I can, in my own mind, get a clear understanding of what I should be discussing and what's the purpose of this meeting. So I end the meetings always at the end telling them this is what they should expect. We'll be in touch with you in this timeline. This is what you should expect from us as to how we're going to reach out to you. And I wish them the best. I mean, I'm hopeful that they'll find employment, whether with us or someone else. But the last thing that I always want to say is with regards to the offering, if I can make a distinction between when it's them selling them to me versus me selling the company and position to them, I think that makes for an easier interview process. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I will add to that, because I love that you go through that, is like, I think we sometimes forget that we need to sell a candidate on the position as well, that they're trying to find a good fit for them as much as we're trying to find a good fit for our organization. You mentioned telling them who you are. I find that we're very good at introducing ourselves when we meet someone in person. But when we get on that phone interview or that Zoom interview or whatever it is, sometimes we forget to do that and we just want to jump right in. So I always have to remind my clients, introduce yourself. Even if you're a business of one right now, or you're the face that's all over your marketing and website, they don't know you yet. Introduce yourself. So take that time, introduce yourself. And yes, you always should end with next steps. When can they expect to hear from you? What does that next step look like if they're selected to move forward? Let them know what to expect.
Get your free copy of the book In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. This is a how-to guide for accounting professionals to work with their clients and actually implement proven processes and systems to ensure that their clients make profit a priority. It is in this book you'll actually learn how to map the business and, in fact, make marketing, accounting, and production a priority within your client's business. You also learn the wisdom pyramid, how to actually take the information you're providing to your clients and effectively use it so that they can make more informed business decisions. This book is designed to help you communicate more effectively with your clients and, in fact, have them see you as their profit and growth expert. Get your free copy now of the ebook today, In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. This is wonderful. Now we're running short on time here, but I've got 2 more questions.
Sounds
Let's see if we can get these quick in here. First of all, personality assessments. One of the things that I know a lot of people consider is these personality assessments that are wonderful to kind of see if they're a cultural fit and what kind of role they may take in the organization, whether or not they'll mesh well. Do you have any thoughts as it relates to in the hiring process using personality assessments?
Yeah. So if you're going to use personality assessments in the hiring process, there's just 2 quick things that I'll say about that is one, then you should also be using those personality assessments with your team that exists. So you can't know if someone's going to fit into your organization if you really don't understand your organization as a whole. So don't use them in the hiring process if you're not using them in the management process. And then 2, it should never be the last thing a candidate does. So don't get the results back and say, no, I'm not moving forward with this candidate. There should always be a conversation after you do those assessments to really understand the candidate, how these things show up. There are a lot of things that show up on an assessment that really comes out in someone in their personal life, but they've learned how to mitigate it or use it differently or use it to their advantage in their business life. So the assessment's only going to show you so much, to make sure you always have a conversation afterwards to understand that candidate and those results.
Perfect. This is wonderful. Last question. You have a home winery. So in my mind, I'm thinking like a distillery here, moonshine. I'm wondering, do you get a liquor license? Are you really back there fermenting grapes? Tell me what that is.
So we do not stomp our own grapes. So we buy the juices and everything ready to go. And we just bring it through the fermenting process and everything and bottle it. We don't have a liquor license because we don't sell it. It's just for our own consumption, or we give it away as gifts. So if you're a teacher of one of my children, you're probably going to get at least 2 bottles a year, one at Christmas time and then one at the end of the year. We give it away to friends and family, but mostly my dad had been doing it for years, and we're just like, wait, why are we going to go buy wine at the store where you're going to spend probably a minimum of $15 on a good bottle of wine, all the way up to whatever, when we can make wine that we highly enjoy at home for $3 to $4 a bottle. So we're just like, it started as a cost savings and we just enjoy it. We love it.
I love it. Okay, so I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm going to say something here. If you know what I'm talking about, maybe you could just answer it. My brother and sister-in-law, they do something similar, and they have over in the corner of their home this jar with something they refer to as the mother, and it looks like a jellyfish kind of a thing, and it's from that they're fermenting their whatever. Does that sound familiar to you at all?
Looks like a jellyfish.
It looks like a jellyfish. It's the most bizarre thing, but it's from that they get this fermented juice. So they have a vineyard, and from that they actually, with the juices, obviously are fermenting them, and they have this thing that looks like a jellyfish of sorts inside of the vat in this clear jar. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. The way I think of it is going to sound bizarre. If you've seen the movie Dune, the old one back in the 80s, it's that thing that's kind of like floating in there. I don't know. Anyways, it's bizarre. It's kind of funny. They always point it out, and it's odd, but I thought you might know what that was.
Yeah. We don't have a jellyfish with ours, but like I said, we already buy the juices. So maybe it's something that is needed in that earlier step of the process. So, or they just do it slightly differently too. They have different processes and everything to ferment it. So I'll have to go look that up.
I'm going to his house in a few months. I was going to go bring it up, you showed me this like 2 or 3 times. I just wasn't paying attention. I need to understand this because it's become kind of a talking point. Anyways, this has been a lot of fun. I really found this very insightful. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap a few things up here and more importantly, come back to you for a closing thought. As it relates to our conversation, I have for my listeners a special gift here that I'd like you to take advantage of. Basically, Jamie has offered here in the episode description a place where you can access her on-demand free webinar series, How to Find Employees Who Are Worth Their Paycheck. You can go to the episode description, get the information there to actually go and access that, and I encourage you to do so. In addition to this, we actually have 4 individuals looking for employment, a job placement assistance program, and it has a course associated with it to find employment with confidence. It's more designed for the individual looking for employment, but I can definitely tell you as a hiring manager, this is an excellent course to watch because you're getting to see 2 sides of the equation. It's the same coin. They're interviewing, or they're going through the interviewing process. You're the interviewer, and it actually addresses these things as it relates to the hiring process. So I'd highly recommend you check out the job placement, the finding employment with confidence course. The other thing I'd like to share as it relates to just this conversation is the whole idea of interviewing. At the beginning of the conversation, we talked about staffing, how today there is a high demand for individuals within the accounting profession, and we've got to face this challenge and do so intelligently. We talked about essentially the hiring process as you screen individuals, looking at resumes. We discussed the cover letter. I thought that was a phenomenal discussion, something well worth spending some time reviewing. And then as you go through that, we then talked about the interviews and whether or not to do 1, 2, 3. But the important part of this is what should the interview consist of? And there were some wonderful insights there. I really like the comments that Jamie was able to share as it relates to hiring or finding someone that is overqualified and maybe going deeper into why it is that they're applying for the position to understand their needs so we get a great fit. Her comment also regarding being a solopreneur, being on a bike and getting the right person on the bus, that philosophy in a higher or larger corporation of get them in here, we want them, we'll find the right place for them, just doesn't work in a smaller organization. And we do have to be a little bit more intentional when hiring towards skills because maybe we don't have the bandwidth to train them, work with them. We've got to expect that they're going to hit the ground running. And so we've definitely got to lean more towards the skills. But in today's market, if we can find good quality individuals, obviously with Universal Accounting Center, we might be able to close the gap and give them the skills and the confidence they need to do the work you're expecting of them. So there's a lot of great information that we covered in the conversation today. And then clearly, we obviously ended by that conversation about wine. Who the heck knew you could actually be fermenting at home? And I love it because my brother does it, and obviously Jamie does as well. And it's obviously for personal expectations, and it's kind of nice. I think it's a great talking point. So it's kind of fun to bring that up. So with all that being said, Jamie, what final thought do you have for today?
Yeah, so I think the final thought that ties everything together that we talked about today is just always remember, just because someone's good at what they do does not mean they're right for you. So just make sure your hiring process is set up so you can find the person that's right for you, because that's going to save you so much time when it comes to managing and leading this team member.
Very good. Culture, skill, and passion. Great things to consider today. So with that being said, I want to wrap things up by first of all inviting you, if you haven't already as a listener, subscribed, please do so. Subscribe to the podcast, set your notifications. We release each and every week highlights and more importantly, episodes of individuals that are experts in their own right as it helps us have the premier accounting firm. Also go to universalaccounting.com. There you can find podcast highlights. It's there where we've put together playlists of various topics that you can dive into as it relates to your specific needs in your business. So go to universalaccounting.com, check out the podcast highlights and see what you can binge listen today. In addition, I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's here at a conference that we have each and every May that you get to actually hear from the experts, meet with your peers, collaborate with them, and also get to know the staff here at Universal Accounting Center that are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting Center. And then with regards to these conversations and others, if you'd like to go deeper into any of these, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to discuss these and other principles with you. You can give us a phone call at 801-265-3777, or you can also visit us at universalaccountingschool.com. And with that being said, be safe out there, and always remember, if it's about accounting, it is universal.